Hello and welcome to another episode of Casual Conversations with Comic Creators. It's episode 38. I've actually done 38 of these. So this, if you don't already know, is the My Matter show where each month I speak to a different comic creator about their journey and what goes into the craft of making comics. So it's all about showcasing the human being behind the art form as we discover each person's story. So I'm the My Matter co-founder, Nigel, and tonight I'm actually talking with two people. So this is a first. Well, a first for this specific show. Usually there's only two people here, but we've doubled the guests. So we've got two people, two comic creators who have joined forces to make something special that we're going to talk about. So first, we have a returning guest, Rachael Smith, who is a creator who has a lot of humorous comics that tackle mental health issues. And I think we first spoke. I'm going to try and fact check this while we're live. I think she was with us in the first episode of Casual Conversations with Comic Creators about quarantine comics. We'll fact check that live. But also joining her is Paul Cornell, who is a writer who has worked on a bunch of things. I saw Doctor Who, I saw Marvel, I saw DC, I saw some awards in there as well. So they are working on Who Killed Nessie, which is launching at Thought Bubble in November. That is November, right? How are you both doing?
I'm well.
Cool.
I'm good, thank you.
All
I'm
right. So,
sweltering. I am sweltering in this heat. Goodness.
are you not a heat person?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
So
I'm
it's a bit
stay in
rough.
the house for most of the day.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I feel that I'm generally good with heat. Monday and Tuesday was a lot, but generally I had we had a session. This is not about me, by the way. We're going to talk about you, but we had a session. We had to leave the house to work with some kids at an event, and then on the way, I had a full-on like sweat epidemic. It just got to me. But luckily the place was air conditioned. So yeah, if anyone watching outside of the UK, this is kind of how we do things in the UK. We talk about weather. You have to talk about the weather first of all. So we've done that. We have checked that box, and yeah, we're gonna get into it. So as we do, we're gonna uncover like their both people's journeys. We're gonna find out about this specific project. What I want to start with though is because Rachel, you have been here before. So since you were last here, whenever that was, which we're gonna check, how have things been? Because I remember speaking because you made this comic, Quarantine Comics, and which kind of blew up, and then I feel I maybe got you at the beginning of this wave. Was it a wave? Like, what have you been up to since we last spoke in that sense?
Um, yeah, it was maybe a wave. It certainly made me a lot more um recognizable, I guess, in the comics industry. After Quarantine Comics, the same publisher Icon picked up three more of my books. Two of which I'd self-published myself. But they kind of got them into a bigger audience, and they were Wired Up Wrong and Stand in Your Power, two books about mental health, as you
Mm,
mentioned before. And then a third one, which they commissioned, called Glass Half Empty. So that was kind of my trilogy of mental health books. So they did really well for me, and they still are really popular when I take them to conventions and things. Um,
mm,
but yeah, since then I started Nap Comics, my web comic about being a new mum. I had a baby as well since we
yeah,
last spoke.
I saw we were in
Um,
Malta together, and then you brought the whole
yes, you met
family.
him in Malta. Yeah, we had a little family trip to Malta Comic Con. Um, and yeah, that's been a journey all by itself. Obviously, being a mum is a journey all by itself, but doing that web comic is a journey all by itself as well. I've got a lot more readership from a different demographic, I guess, which has been
Mm,
really nice. And yeah, hoping to make a book out of my Nap comics, maybe on Kickstarter around October, but yeah,
okay.
don't quote me on that. Luckily, we're not recording this, right?
No, it's just us. It's just us here.
Yeah,
Us and Craig. So cool. No, that sounds good. I mean, I might have to come back to you on that publishing thing because that's something because we're self-published and that's something that's been on my mind. But again, it's not about me. So, but Paul, yourself. So we've never met before. So what I found over doing 38 of these now is it kind of became a way for me to catch up with people that I hadn't spoken with for a while, which is kind of lazy on my part, but it works. It works for me. But we've never met, so this is a brand new introduction. Yeah, tell us a bit about yourself and how. I'm curious to know sort of what kind of work you've done before and how you met with Rachel as we talk about this specific project.
Well, I've been trying to remember that. I can't remember a point pre-Rachel, which is suspicious,
because it
frankly.
must be awful, awful to not have Rachel in your
Rachel, yeah,
life.
scrub that from memory.
I think it was a convention called True Believers in Cheltenham, but I couldn't tell you which year because I've done that one a few times. Maybe like 2017, that sort of era. But yeah,
Right.
Pre-pandemic.
the before times.
The before times, yeah. That's probably why you can't remember.
Yeah, probably. And yeah, so basically, I've been working as a freelancer forever. I was on a panel with Rachel Stott, the other Rachel, and there was some question about 1970s comics, and Rachel said, "Paul, you know this. You're from the past," and
Oh wow.
that's where I'm from. I've never had a proper job. I've been doing this a very long time, and so I do things because they are fun and because the audience might think they're fun. And I think that this Rachel, is a future Eisner winner. And I wish to be standing beside her and slightly in her shadow on that stage when she wins the Eisner. And so, yeah, this is my first attempt to bowl that ball. And no, basically, we're having a chat, and I don't even remember this clearly. I think Who Killed Nessie came about because we were having a chat about what the most ridiculous possible comic could be. And but do you remember what the
I
origin
think
was?
we had both decided that we'd like to work together on something. And we had a Zoom call to figure out what that might be. I think I mentioned to you that I had wanted to write something about, well, because I'd done a book called Isabella and Blodwyn, which had a lot of folklore in it, interwoven in it. Um, and the witch in that book is it's kind of from that world, kind of the Green Man kind of world. Um, and I'd really loved researching those stories and drawing those characters. Yeah, so I kind of said I'd really like to do something a little bit like that again, maybe with like some other folklore from different countries, because I don't know much about that apart from I'd got really into researching yokai, the Japanese kind of folklore slash monsters. So then we just started talking about cryptids and monsters and supernatural creatures, and we both got quite animated and excited about all that. And yeah, I think Paul, you said you just had this like vision of
It's the chalk shape of Nessie on the floor. That was it for me.
So I guess that's when it became like a whodunnit. And yeah, I started drawing and we kept chatting, and then Paul wrote it in a very short amount of time. I was very impressed. It just kind of came out of you.
That's interesting. So it's quite organic. That sounds quite like it wasn't necessarily a formal plan. You just is that how it happens in comics? Just people just meet and then suddenly some work comes out of it. I always got the impression that it's a publisher somewhere says we need this amount of comics and then we find the people to do it. But this sounds like bottom up.
I mean, I wouldn't know how the big publishers work. I guess sometimes they marry up people together and they work like that. But no, I mean, when you're as good pals as Paul and I, it can happen much more organically, which I liked.
Yeah, I think basically it happens in all sorts of different ways because this industry is still the Wild West for good and ill. And sometimes the big publishers do say you and you, or usually you and what do you think of this you? With a strong hint of if you don't like
Oh
this
yeah,
you
yeah,
might
yeah.
not, yeah. And um, but no, I mean people teaming up and adding their resources together is always really valuable in this job, I think. And yeah, it's sort of any way that it can be made to happen, especially now because the industry has never been rougher.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of that, and because you have worked for large publishers, Paul, and you said something interesting. You've never had a proper job, so you've always done this.
Well, there was half a day. I
Oh,
spoilt my
okay.
record. I spoilt my record with half a day putting frozen meat through a circular saw. But I quit at lunchtime,
Oh
and
wow.
I hope that doesn't count against my record of being a freelancer for life.
I'm intrigued
And
by that.
well, it's not that intriguing. I mean, I mean, it was a temp job. I was what,
You know
16?
what? Well, no, the other stuff, the not doing the quote
Oh, I
unquote proper
see.
job.
It
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
so funny if this interview now became all
yeah.
about that
Just
half day
that
that
for half
Paul
day. Yeah,
let's
take us
not
hour
talk
by
about the
hour.
comics.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Tell
no,
me
no,
more
you said
about this circular meat.
what can you remember? What can you remember of the saw?
So yeah.
No, I've always been, you know, doing this thing of trying to survive by taking whatever writing jobs were to hand. And I was going to be an astrophysicist. I went to UCL and did a few weeks of astrophysics before realizing I couldn't do it.
Okay, you
And
decide things quick, like a few weeks, lunchtime, and I like
yeah,
that decisiveness.
it's more panic.
Oh yeah,
Panic, panic happens swiftly.
yeah, I like
And
that
and,
quote
and,
actually.
and so I've run frantically from job to job, just you know. I always think I have a sort of sidelong career. I've got lots of different stuff, and not a lot that builds in any one particular place. And I think Mike Carey is the only other person with a similar sort of he's done everything feel to him,
Mm,
you know. And yeah, I really like the Rachel Smiths of this world, in that you know Rachel has a thing that people go, oh, Rachel Smith, that thing. She does this,
mm,
and I've never really had that. So with every project for me, it's kind of like for a portion of the audience, it's day one for me, you know.
right.
And I'm not like that chap who just wrote murder mysteries about jockeys, you know.
Ah, that's interesting. Because yeah, Rachel, you do have a thing in terms of I guess the types of stories you do and the style is the visual style of them. It's very like easily recognizable. You have a brand basically. You have a brand. Is that intentional? Have you always like aimed for that?
Um, no, I've never. I mean, obviously, my autobiographical stuff
Mm,
is, it's always about me and it's always very honest, to a fault, my mum would say. Um, but even when I make up stories like Isabella and Blodwyn, that I mentioned earlier, or The Rabbit, or Artificial Flowers, they are still very character driven. They're very, I hope that people can see themselves in the characters. Um, so yeah, even when I try and do like really off the wall things, I still end up just writing characters that are very, very believable and very down to earth.
mm,
So yeah, I guess I don't know. I just want my stories, whether they're real or made up, I just want them to make people feel less alone in the
mm.
world. And I hope they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
No,
that's it.
that's
If your thing is audience identification and emotional resonance, that's not a narrow bandwidth. That's like
yeah,
all human life is here.
both.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, especially for something like quarantine comics, because we're all going through that and that connection. And I feel I was having a conversation earlier today actually about comics, or a meeting about comics, and in our case, it's about like resonating particularly with younger readers. I mean, our stories I like to think are suitable for like all ages and have different layers, but I'm increasingly keen on like young people and reading and that creativity and using that as a vehicle for it. So I think it's good to have a thing. And yeah, when you do get that Eisner, just like don't forget you were here on episode 1. I actually checked it, so you were the first when I first started doing this. You're on episode 1, so I want that in your Wikipedia page. I want to be a footnote and just like put me in there. But again,
Yeah, I
it's
don't have one of them yet. I'm not famous enough for Wikipedia yet, but
okay.
maybe,
Wait,
maybe one day.
are you Wikipedia famous? That is the question of life. Cool. All right. So you've met and you decided to make this comic that's come out organically. Tell us about it. Tell us about the story, and particularly because I saw the word crypt, cryptozoological, which I'm gonna hazard a guess is a made up word. I didn't do a dictionary.
No, no,
Is that is that a real
no.
word?
Yeah, it's a real word. There
Oh,
are cryptozoologists out there. It's the branch of zoology which deals with creatures that may or may not be real,
huh.
like Bigfoot. Um,
Right.
yeah, and
I learned something today.
thus creatures like Bigfoot are known as cryptids.
So cryptozoology is the study of creatures that may or may not be real, and then cryptids
One
The
of those
creatures.
creatures.
is one of those okay. Oh, okay. There you go. You
So
come for this to
Bigfoot
this
is a
team to learn
cryptid,
things. Is a cryptid.
for
Okay.
example.
All right. So I stand corrected. It's a real word. So you have a cryptozoological whodunit story. Yeah. Tell us about like well, or what you can share because it's not actually out yet, right? It's coming later in the year. So tell us what you can about it, and we'll show some stuff on stream so people can see it visually as well.
Paul, do you want to
Oh, okay. I just wanted to hear what your blurb was like, because mine's a bit rough and ready. Okay, so there's this young woman called Lindsay Grockle, who has just got out of a terrible relationship and is the intern at this hotel on the edge of the Great Lakes. And to her surprise, she's given entire control of the hotel while the rest of the staff flee for one particular weekend because that's when the convention happens. And she swiftly discovers that she is the only human at a convention of cryptids and other mythological beasts, strange creatures from that have supposedly a real existence in the world. We haven't made anything up. We have taken everything from real, in inverted commas, accounts. And from the Kraken to the Loch Ness Monster to the Mongolian Death Worm to Japanese yokai to the Slender Man, all sorts of these strange creatures are having their yearly fun meeting with panels and a dance and a buffet. And then she's called from her bed in the middle of the night by Bob, the beast of Bodmin Moor, who's a talking cat who tells her there's been a murder and that the Loch Ness Monster has been found dead. And one of them did it, and they don't trust each other enough to solve it, so it's up to Lindsay. As they say, you may not believe in us, but we believe in you.
Wow. Okay. How was that, Rachel? Was that accurate?
Yeah,
Because
perfect.
it's the good thing about having like two creators here. You can fact check in real time and compare notes in real time. But you're saying that's good.
No, that was beautiful.
Cool. Nice. So then, was this something where? Because immediately as you say that, I'm thinking. I mean, the last sort of whodunit thing I saw was Knives Out, which is a little while ago. Was there any like direct inspiration from that sense, or from the idea specifically? How did you land on something like this?
I've never done a whodunit before, and I sort of wanted to do one and see if I could make it fly, and I think I have.
Definitely. Yeah.
I,
Okay.
I mean, I say, but um, the way that Rachel was involved in the actual narrative, for example, I was following. She'd already drawn the cover with lots of different creatures on, and so I made sure that they were all in the book and identified them all and gave them roles and gave them parts. And all throughout, you know, um, I did submit full script, but
Hmm.
then reacting to these wonderful drawings and the all the added dimensions and the acting, the amazing character acting, her fairies. I mean, when I wrote them, they were a kind of sarcastic and dangerous bunch, but my goodness. Um, the sequence where the fairies realise they're eating Yeti flavoured crisps, and when the Yetis complain, just go, "Well, I've started them."
I did
The
have a
packet's
lot of
open.
fun with the fairies. They
Hmm.
were good. They
Wow.
had some of the best lines, the fairies.
And I
So
love your Minotaur, your Minotaur, who's just is so emotional. You know, you can really read that Minotaur's face.
So then, how does that work in terms of? So I'm assuming Rachel art, Paul writing, and then you're going back and forth in terms of developing the story. How do you work together? Are you in the same physical space for this? Are you emailing scripts and pages back and forth? And in terms of like the story coming and taking shape, how does that work between you?
Well, Paul wrote the story after our kind of initial collaboration. Paul kind of just went off and wrote the script, and then I tended to, like, I did ask Paul if he wanted like thumbnails and then inks and pencils and everything, but Paul said he was fine just seeing finished pages, so that was nice to be
Oh
trusted,
wow. Okay. Yeah.
so so much. And then I just sent Paul the pages as I finished them, and yeah,
Okay.
there was only a few little tweaks, but yeah, largely
But
it was all
that's what
good.
I enjoy. I love adjusting dialogue to art, and that really adds something.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, I feel you on that because so for our process we do so I write I don't can't draw. I used to when I was a kid but not anymore. So I write and then our illustrator will do like sketches and then we'll do finished things and I know what you mean, Paul, because I mean, tell me if this is the same for you. Like, I'll have that idea in my head, and then my job is to like write a script. I do like an outline document, any references, send that across, and then I essentially get back a different version of the story that was in my head, which is
yeah,
not exactly the same, but in
yeah,
a good way. And
yeah.
Mm.
then you immediately find that some of the dialogue doesn't work, and you need to then adjust because when it's in your when it's in your head and you've got the images in your head, that's one thing. But when you see the panel layout, you've then got to go, actually, this dialogue,
Yeah.
it doesn't work because the characters are doing whatever they've already answered that. I don't need to say it again in text. So did you have that or those moments as well?
I was thinking about this um sort of in readiness for this conversation. I
Mm.
I mean, there must have been a little bit of that, but I can't really remember that much of it in this project. And I think just Paul, I mean, this isn't Paul's first rodeo, obviously. Like, Paul's amazing at writing comics, so there wasn't really much. What's the word I want? Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. That once you've drawn the pictures, it sometimes renders some of the dialogue. You don't need it because you're saying the same thing twice.
Mm.
But yeah, there wasn't that much of that with this project, really.
I, I I think some of that is because you know the artist you're writing for, and sometimes
Right.
I don't. And but this was me writing a series of, oh, I want to see how Rachel would draw this. So so I know what her pages feel like. So I'm writing into that and not against her grain. I'm writing because I know the sort of things that she does, and I want to do more of that. And I think that's really important when you know what an artist's work looks like to write for them. There's one famous comics writer, I think it's Garth Ennis, I'm sorry if it's not, who refuses to read dialogue after the art comes in and
Golly.
thinks that the
Oh,
artist should have got it the first time. And I think you can see that sometimes. I think you can hear that. And
interesting.
yeah, I mean, he's a
Oh, that's
genius,
quite.
and I
Yeah,
adore
yeah.
him. And don't hurt me, Garth.
No.
But but no, I think it's really important to adjust for art. And I don't think we did it much this time, but that's because I was already thinking about Rachel's way of doing
Like
stuff.
style and yeah, yeah. Ah, that's
The
interesting because
other
I've. Oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
The
No,
other
go
thing
ahead.
I remember not having to do, it's a weird sentence, that I have done in the past with writers that I haven't known very well. Often I've had to email them asking what a character is feeling in a scene. So, like, obviously, they'll tell me what the character's saying, but sometimes the character will be feeling something different, or, for example. But I feel like because Paul and I kind of came up with the concept together, and also there's a lot of me in Lindsay, I feel. I don't know whether that was on purpose or not. I kind of felt like I knew the main character really well.
Right.
So I just kind of knew. It was like I was just drawing some friends that I already knew. So yeah, I found that I didn't really have to ask Paul how anyone was feeling, which I
Fair.
do often with other writers.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a good working relationship. And I feel you on the emotion thing because I try and do that with. So, like I said, there's a script and there's an outline. And in the outline, there's more of a breakdown of characters and what they want and what they're trying to do. And I'm always mindful of like movement. So this character starts here and moves here, and you like our illustrator Penelope will just interpret that as they see it, and it often works out. But I try and give it's that balance, right? You try and give the leeway for interpretation. So you're obviously you've got a story to tell and a purpose and everything, but then that leeway for interpretation by giving that good direction, which it sounds like you've both done, and it helps that you know each other from the before times as well. Always a plus. So, and then when it comes to like Paul, I'm interested in the different projects you've worked and how this differs, particularly going from like I mentioned. So you've worked on Marvel and DC, and it'll be interesting to know, or for you to share like what stuff you've worked on that people would recognize, and then the difference between that and then working on a more independent project where you do know the your co-creator and everything. So can you tell us a bit about that transition?
Well, I mean, at Marvel, I was very fortunate. Marvel and DC, I was very fortunate with the artists I got, and many of them are, still friends and people I've grown to know as we worked on it. Wolverine and Captain Britain and MI13 at Marvel, Action Comics at DC, the Lex Luthor running Action Comics, and Demon Knights, which a lot of people seem to like, which is a high fantasy.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, you get to know your artist, you get to know the sort of things they do, and I've been very fortunate with my artists. People like Ryan Kelly on Saucer Country and uh, on I Walk with Monsters, Sally Cantorino, who, like Rachel, can kind of read my mind. And that's what you're after, that feeling of it's what I was after, but better.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
as you said, Nigel,
Yeah.
and
That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, I really prize those artists, and you know, like with Sally, I met her early on in her career, and I've always wanted to work with her again, but she's incredibly busy. So it's uh, at Marvel, the relationships vary enormously. Sometimes you will be with an artist who you literally never hear from, and sometimes, like dear old Pete Woods, who I adore, you'll be, or Leonard Kirk, you'll be in your emails all the time, and yeah, so like everything else in comics, it varies enormously.
Yeah, because you said like comics is a wild west, and I get that, and interesting to hear both your perspectives on it, because it feels to me like comics, there's not so much of a structure to comics, and how you break in and how you sustain like yourselves and then get your work out. Do you both find that? And if so, how have you managed to, because I consider you both like established in terms of working in the comics industry, whatever that means. Basically, how have you done that? Like, how have you done that in what is a Wild West industry?
Just keeping going, just getting up and just keep drawing and keep writing. For me, there wasn't a kind of breaking through a wall moment. There was just a moment where I realized I could do what I wanted, and if I just kept going,
That
then
sounds like a supervillain origin story.
if you like. And I just realized there wasn't a wall there, really, if I had the determination to do it myself. So, for example, I started with self-publishing because I didn't really have the patience to wait for somebody to pick me and go, oh, would you like to draw this story? Here you go. I knew that it was very unlikely that was going to happen. So I just did it myself and took myself to Comic-Cons and sold my little zines at tables and just started that way. And eventually the publishers that I did want to work with started noticing me, and yeah, there wasn't like there's not sort of a linear way to break into this industry like there is with other industries. You can kind of do what you want, which is nice in some ways and frustrating in other ways because you never quite know if you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that the same for you, Paul?
Oh goodness, yes. I mean, I think I've now just about moved from newbie to veteran with never being anything in the middle, and it's there never is a moment where you feel you're in. I suspect this is everyone in every creative industry, and I think what's really frustrating is there's no apprenticeship program where you get to draw a page or so, and then you'll make some tea for people. I mean, there kind of used to be at Marvel and DC. You kind of started in the post room like dear old Dan Slott did, and worked your way up to writing comics. But that's it's so few and far between. You really have got to do something like Rachel did, or be an enormous Nepo baby like me, because, and this will resonate, I'm sure, with many of your audience who will be able to copy this. All you need to do to get a comics career is have an episode of Doctor Who made, and then have Mark Miller email you to say, I really liked your episode of Doctor Who, would you like to write for Marvel Comics? As I say, it's easily... That's the route you need.
Just two steps. That's
literally, that was like 5 seconds explanation. Yeah. Makes
if
sense.
only I'd known.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say caveats that I'd worked for a lot of British comics beforehand and learned how to write comics at the side of John Freeman, who edited Doctor Who magazine, who taught me, and that I was ready for that ridiculous break. Because you've got to be ready when the break happens. But sometimes the break happens.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for being in the right place at the right time, but your work also has to be there.
That's the part of the equation that people tend not to realise. You have actually got to be good enough.
Yeah, which takes a lot.
But, it's funny you're saying, and I'm glad you're saying this. One, it makes me feel better because I also feel like I'm not in. I'm just doing stuff like because as you know, and people watching will know that we do like workshops with young people, so often speaking to young people. And I remember, I think this was earlier this year, I was speaking to someone at a networking thing. This was in the context of games, but I think it still applies here. And I was asked like, how do you break in? And I'm sometimes asked that in terms of comics. I don't know what to say because the answer is quite disappointing. We just made a comic. That was it. We just made a comic, and then we made another one, and then we realized that we need to do more marketing, and then we tried to do more marketing and like that. And it's a pretty boring kind of unexciting answer. But hearing you both say the same thing.
But that's something people can actually do as well. You can make a comic, and honestly, that it's a noble pursuit. You go to Thought Bubble, all those people who have made comics, and there is not one person, who has got to Marvel exclusive or DC exclusive, who looks down on those people who have made comics. We all know what it's like. That's a make your comic. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then once you've made it, then because this is what I found, because we did our first comic, and then we went to Comic-Con with the thought that it's Comic-Con, everyone's gonna love it. But obviously, there's a million other creators, and no one knows who we are. So I've seen like your comic. Do you say comic, graphic novel? Where do you draw a line on that? Actually,
I think a graphic novel is a specific sort of comic.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. All right. So
Rachel?
what do you think?
I usually say like a graphic novel is a comic that has a spine, but I could be wrong. I don't know. It's just a
Okay, I like
big
that.
comic.
A big comic, all right, a comic that has a spine.
But
I'm going to
graphic
use
novels
that.
are comics as well. Like
Yeah.
it's all comics.
All right. So then for Who Killed Nessie, then you've made it. It's as we speak, it's done, and I'll show some pages on stream as well. So you've got it. I've seen you're gonna like launch it at Thought Bubble. So can you describe the marketing side of things? Because and we found this at the beginning, and I still to this day struggle with this part of it, where it's the typical creator thing. You've made something, but the skill to the process to market it is a whole different skill. So can you describe like once it's made, what are you doing with it? Why is it not out now? Why are you launching it at Thought Bubble, which is still months away? So describe that process.
Well, we're not launching it at Thought Bubble.
Oh,
we're going to have some stuff at Thought Bubble. There's going to be some
right.
nice stuff at Thought Bubble, but it actually launches in September.
Okay, there you go.
We've got to launch at Waterstones in London and some other signing dates. Rachel, you know about publicising comics and all that.
Well, let me just get my publicizing head on right now and read this thing. Yeah, we're launching it on the 20th of September at Waterstones in London, Waterstones Piccadilly in London, 20th of September at 1 p.m. and we'll be signing and chatting. And it's free to attend. Come to that. We've also got a party at Gosh on the 10th of October, which we're having alongside 2 other Avery Hill publishing books.
Okay.
Not sure of the actual time of that, but they're always free to attend and always lots of fun. Come to those, and yeah, we will have them at Thought Bubble.
Okay,
We're also having a little exhibition at the Mercer Gallery in Harrogate there as well. So,
Okay.
Sorry, Paul.
Well, no, do people know about? Are people meant to know about that?
Oh, sorry. Forget if you're listening. Forget you
Forget
heard
that.
it. We'll be doing stuff at Thought Bubble.
Thought Bubble
Yeah.
and surrounding area. There you go. The
Yeah,
joys
you
of
can
life.
pre-order it now. If you're interested in doing that, you can pre-order it from your local comic book shop, or Amazon if you're into that. Or if you go to Avery Hill Publishing website, you can pre-order it there as well. But yeah,
We ought to mention Zoom, in that we got this. We originally crowdfunded it through Zoom, and people who backed us on Zoom will be getting their entirely different edition first.
So this is a crowdfunded project.
Yeah, and then Avery Hill said we'd like some of that, and so they're doing a bookstore edition of it.
Right. And is this then the value of the publisher? Because like you said, Rachel, you started self-published, you made something, you took it to comic conventions, fairs, I imagine, things like that, and then that's one way to do it. And obviously, it's quite like labor intensive because you make it and then now you've got to physically go somewhere, stand on behind a table for at least one day, maybe two, maybe three. So is the value of the publisher that now someone else is going to do that work and get it in more places?
Yeah, I mean, that is the great thing about working with a publisher is that they'll usually have someone whose job it is to publicize what you've made, and they'll have all the contacts at all the shops that stock comics, and they'll do
Mm.
that for you. When it's a self-published book, it's just me on my phone
Yeah.
ringing
Yeah.
shops to see if they'll be interested in taking it. So yeah, the publishers, in my experience, are just they'll be able to get your book into more people's hands at the end of the
Mm.
day. And yeah, that's a really good thing to have. And then you, as the creator, can spend more of your time creating rather
Creating,
than
yeah.
trying to tell people about your book, which a lot of the time creators aren't super good at because a lot of us are quite introverted.
Yeah.
But some creators are really great at it and prefer to do it themselves. But yeah,
We
I'd
we
rather
we,
spend my time drawing and writing.
we worked so hard at that crowdfunding
But the
campaign.
Zoop thing, yeah, we did.
That like it was just during the initial exodus from Twitter as well. It was like, oh come on, and my local pharmacy during that just took me in for a random blood pressure test, and it was on the day before the crowdfunding campaign ended, and they were like, oh,
What's
oh,
happened? Yeah.
yeah, now they were like just this far from rushing me into hospital, and I
And then
was
you showed them the page and they're like, oh no, okay,
yeah,
that's why.
I was like, no, it's a crowdfunding campaign, and they were like, oh, okay. But literally, the 2 days later, when they checked again, it was oh, okay.
That's funny. That's the realities
Well,
of being yeah,
well,
self promoting.
they say comedy is tragedy with the removal of time, and absolutely, there we are. But but no, yeah, crowdfunding campaigns are hard. They are, and being with a traditional publisher, as Rachel just said, is reassuring. It helps a lot.
Yeah, because yeah, like I said, I've been thinking about it myself because we've always been sort of self published, and yeah, like you said, there's a speed element. You just go and do something, but then you are spending a lot of time doing the things that I mean, some people might like it. Marketing is not necessarily my like why I'm doing the thing I'm doing, but then it's a very necessary part of the thing if you want it to work. And like you in the positions you're in, like, in terms of like this is what you do, then you've got to do some marketing or someone's got to do it. Delegation. There you go. So we got a bit of time, but we're approaching the hour mark. So wanted to come back to oh by the way, you Rachel, I can't remember if we did this on the first one, but we do like a bonus round. We end with a bonus round of questions. I don't think you did this last time, so consider that your warning. Not going to tell you anything else.
Okay.
Anyway, so when it comes to the book, so you described it as well as cryptozoological, which is now my word of the day. In that you describe it as a book about finding confidence through rationality and accepting a world of mystery. So it feels like there's a theme there as well. How do you approach like applying or infusing your stories with any themes or messages? Is that something that you do intentionally before you start, or is that something that you allow to come out as you're making?
Um,
Well, you
I
do it a
don't.
lot.
I feel like it's more kind of natural. But I don't know, Paul, what do you think?
Well, I mean, some of it you realise after the fact, don't you? That you kind of realise after a while that a certain amount of your work is about the same thing. And but I mean, with Nessie, it was more like we're talking about the unknown, and creatures that people regard as their reality status is uncertain. And so, and here they are, all absolutely large as life and real. And so it made sense to have a hero who is has some relationship with rationality or irrationality. And in this case, um, she had a boyfriend who um, always accused her of not being, not having poetry in her soul, of being too down to earth and too rational and not accepting all the wild possibilities. But that thing that he accused her of, that she thinks of is as a fault, turns out to be what is her unique selling point, is what saves her, what makes her a detective. And honestly, that's the oldest trick in the book. That's the and that's the first time I've ever actually thought of it in those terms. But that was somewhere up there. The oldest trick in the book.
Yeah, I do like that sort of that way to look at it. It reminds me. I mean, it's a completely different story, but have either of you seen The Wild Robot?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's so. First of all, you have to see that as fantastic animation, very very moving. But there's without saying too much, then there's a character in there who essentially is, I'd say like in the category of runt, but because what they think are shortfallings are like the thing that helps others around them. I'll leave it at that. But it's a very it's a very sort of moving thing, and I think relatable. So back to your thing, Rachel, about making things that are relatable. I think there's a lot of people who can relate to. I have this thing that people maybe tell me is a problem, but actually that's the thing that's gonna set me apart and help me succeed in the end. And I think that's a really powerful story.
That's good.
You see it in Rachel's work all the time. The rabbit, like, is the work of genius. That's staggering.
Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So, bonus round as we end. So I do this thing, and I can't remember when I started doing it, and it. I don't think I did it in the very first, but I always feel like with storytelling, it maps onto life quite nicely because us all being like main characters in our story and how different different sort of considerations of story kind of impact on life. So I'm going to throw some questions at you, and because there's two of you, I'd like to see how you both like handle it. Or maybe you can make a shared story. We'll see how this goes. We never had two people on the show. So like I said, we're all lead characters in our own stories. So for both of you, for Rachel and Paul, let's say co-protagonists, because we can do that in a story. What would you say are your most valuable attributes of the main character, your standout attributes?
Like as real people?
Yeah, as real people.
Okay.
By the way, this is very introspective. This is the introspective part of the discussion.
I get told that I'm very sensitive a lot, which
Okay.
people often use as a bad thing, but I think it's actually one of my strengths.
Strengths. There you go.
Is
Cool.
that the kind of thing you're looking
Yeah,
for?
yeah.
Okay, cool.
What do you say, Paul?
Oh, I the awful stuff that made me as a kid is, I think, maybe what gives me empathy now. That empathy and doubt. Yeah, empathy and doubt. They're my superpowers.
Okay.
I
These
wrote
are
a horror novel. I wrote a horror novel about my own school days. Who can say autobiographical
Oh, wow.
horror? That's not that's a small genre.
That's a niche. That's interesting. We're building very anime characters. These are good like anime protagonists here. So and in any good story you have like an antagonist or forces of antagonism. So what would you say are your collective challenges, and how do you work together to overcome it?
Well, in my diary comics, I have Barky, which is how I draw my mental illnesses, as a big black dog. So he's
Yeah,
kind of my antagonist, if that if that
yeah,
works.
yeah.
Oh, I would say those who do not doubt. Um,
Ooh,
I'm always, and this is sort of is everybody, which makes me very irritating sometimes. If the whole room is going, well, yes, obviously we believe that, I will immediately start going, well, I'm not so sure, and that's sometimes
ah,
important, and sometimes just being a bit edgelordy.
contrarian, the contrarian. Ah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Those who do not doubt. That's I like that. That's you could do a story about that. That's interesting. Okay. And on this journey, on this narrative journey, who would you say are your biggest supporting characters alongside the two of you protagonists?
Uh, I mean,
You can say your publisher because that makes me feel so now.
I was because I know what side my bread's buttered.
Yeah.
I was gonna say each other. Like
Oh,
if
okay.
our
Yeah. Yeah.
protagonists are in the same story, we would help each other. Maybe it's one of those stories that starts with the protagonists far away from one another and then they meet
Uh,
and help each other.
help each other out.
What's the book with Lyra and Will? Northern Lights, the
Oh. Oh.
with the two main protagonists. I always remember that because it's unusual in that there's two main characters and
Characters. Yeah.
they meet in the middle. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I like the story. I like the story.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, who's? I mean, I tend to build communities. I sort of deliberately make found families, and so I think you've done this, Nigel. And
yeah. I
I,
guess so.
I
I've
yeah.
found a lot of people. I've,
So they're sort of I build armies to protect myself.
yeah, yeah. That resonates. That actually resonates. Yeah, I think we might have the same story. um,
Well, kind of bringing it back to talking about the industry, your community in the comics industry is very important. We got to
yeah,
look out for one another.
yeah,
Mm.
because it is difficult. It is a difficult journey. So yeah, it is that support around you. And then last question then in this quick-ish fire bonus round of questions is I was thinking like any good protagonist has a goal, whether they know it or not, something they're working towards. And it's interesting for you two because in a sense you're doing the thing that a lot of people would say is the end goal, like the success. But what would you say is your goal from here? Like what is success to you from here?
There might be something out there that actually feels like success, and I am going to chase it until I can't. Rather like football managers, freelancers never really retire; they're just sacked. And I, um, I hope to end up one day like Terence Dix, my great mentor and old friend, who retired, which meant that he would only take work that was offered to him and never pursue work. And if I ever get to that blessed point of not having to run after anything, that would be nice. It's not going to happen, but a freelancer has to have a goal.
Have to have a goal, have a dream. Yeah, I like the way you phrase that. Actually, not have to run after things, not have to chase things. Right? It's a nice position to be in. I don't know what that's like, but yeah, Rachel, how about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, um, I don't I feel like any of us are in it for the money. That would be an easy answer,
Yeah,
wouldn't it? I'd like to
yeah,
buy a swimming pool or something.
yeah. No one's actually ever given that
Isn't-
answer, like
it
ever
isn't that.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess just to be able to keep telling stories um,
Mm.
would be nice. But then I don't think I will ever not do that because I don't think I'd survive if I couldn't tell
Just
stories.
as a human, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just to
Okay.
get better at telling stories, I guess, which
Mm.
hopefully I always will, bit
Mm.
by bit.
Yeah. Okay. And that is near the end. But last thing is, do you want to just remind people where they can get the graphic novel, the comic with a spine? It does have a spine, right?
Yes,
Okay,
it
the
does.
comic with a spine. Yeah.
Um, you can get it from anywhere that sells books. And yeah, if you mosey on down to your local comic shop, that's probably the best way. But you can also go to averyhillpublishing dot com. Averyhillpublishing.bigcartel.com will be where you can pre-order it. But yeah, you can it's on everywhere at the moment, like Amazon and things like that.
Like, who
Yeah.
killed Nessie with a
I
question
killed
mark,
Nessie.
making it
Nice.
awkward to put in the middle of sentences, I find.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. That's why you have to put quotes around it, and then it grammatically, I think that helps. I don't know. But Rachel, Paul, we've reached the end of another conversation. Thank you very much for both joining me. Yeah, and giving us that insight behind the scenes on this new work.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it, and yeah, appreciate people watching live, watching this later. We may do an audio thing on our, like, take the audio from this and put it on our podcast feed over the summer. We'll see what happens. I've got a because
Amazing.
I do all the editing and then see what works with the schedule. But yeah, I'm sure like everything you said is just like so helpful in terms of obviously realizing what goes into bringing something out and making sure people can see it. So yeah, thank you both for that. And before we wrap up, also want to give a shout to Programmers Group UK, who have provided us with a bunch of things that we use to do our live streams and events, from the camera, from cameras that we use at events, the mic I'm speaking, lighting that we have, the chair I am sitting on, have been for, I thought it's been a couple of years. It's been a while. So yeah, no, we appreciate their support because from the Streamplify stuff, from the Nitro concept chairs, it all helps us put together our live streams, our workshops. We use them for the Do I Look Like a Gamer video game diversity campaign as well, and that contribution helps us create better experiences. It's helped me learn about streaming, which is still relatively new for me, as we continue pushing for diversity and inclusion in creative industries, from games to comics, as we are speaking now. So yeah, thank you to them. For viewers, you can join our Discord as well. We've got a Discord. Join that, chat with us there. Make sure you're following us on Twitch and YouTube, where I hope we're still streaming on. Actually, I didn't check the YouTube. Mental note for next time. But yeah, check that. We stream on both YouTube and Twitch as well. And if you have got to another end of this episode and you are not yet bored by my voice, maybe you might be interested in our podcast, where it's basically me and Tazzy talking for I don't know, a couple hours at a time. Apparently we like to talk, but we talk about stories. We talk to creators of stories. We do interviews, discussions. We've got a video game roundtable coming later tonight or tomorrow, depending on scheduling. But check that out. We are on a recording break over July, so we'll be back recording new episodes after this one. Back recording new episodes in August. We've got it's a superhero heavy summer, so look out for that. But that is the end of another episode of Casual Conversations. We will be back next month, and until then, we will see you again soon. Take care, everyone.